All right, let's do some brakes on a 2005 Pontiac Vibe. Got it up right now on safety stands. First thing we got to do is take the wheels off, take a look at them. I know they're already bad. Let's get those wheels off. So you have two 14s you got to take off here. I can get that in there. You guys are in my way. Two 14s. Pull the caliper off. So what I do, just lay it on the top there. Two 17s behind. Now this one might be a little tighter. Probably gonna move the wheel so I can have the wheel turn this way. Be a lot easier to do that way. All right, so inside ones with a turn should be really tight. Obviously a bigger bolt should be tighter than the other ones. I don't have torque specs. If you want to, you can look those up. I just tighten them by hand the way I normally do, which is no torque wrench, and I've never had one fall off. Okay, so I just know how to tighten up stuff properly. So I take my pads, put them in here. You can use this method, or you can use this method, or you can use a large C-clamp or a big pair of pliers to push those in. But I have this fancy tool here. I've had it for many years. They have these available on Amazon. It's really nice to do brakes with one of these. After you've used one of these, you never want to use anything else. Okay, so you can either push the fluid back up into the master or release it here and take the old fluid out of it. We're going to do it the speed method, which is just to push it back up in the master. So slowly I do this. Okay, push it back up to the master. Now if your pads are really worn, I'll put something else in here, like I'll usually use the new pads and put them in here to push these back in. Okay, that's how I do it. Looks like we had about 25% remaining on these. Weren't that bad. So anyway, push the boot in nice, push it back in. Just a little bit of air in there. That's just a dust boot, so it's not a big deal if it doesn't look pretty. So get that all back in. And, whoops, the rotor should just slide right off. Now we're going to go ahead and give it a little love tap because it is stuck on there. It's rusted in place, which is kind of normal. And we're going to replace the rotors on this car. Well, my dead blow's flowing around somewhere, so watch your ears. I don't care about the rotor. If you wanted to care about it, you'd hit it right here. But at O'Reilly Auto Parts, they're very cheap. This is the same, again, as the Toyota Matrix. Should be the same as a Toyota Corolla. All the same, so they're very inexpensive to buy. So real quick, I'm going to run into the parts store, get our pieces. We'll do one side at a time. The reason you don't do two sides, and you notice in the background some of the master's overflowing. I'll rinse that off here in a little bit, but it rinses off with water. Brake fluid dissolves with water, if you didn't know that. Make sure your line isn't twisted when you put it back on. Very simple brakes. Be done here in about, this is a 30 minutes to an hour job for most people. Talk to you guys a little bit later. So got some brand new rotors. I just like to put new ones on. Usually if you get ceramic pads, you get new rotors. Most of the time that's a good idea. It's up to you. Getting a machine sometimes is more hassle and time than it's worth. The amount of money, because it costs you, say, about half the price of a new one. Machine them. So What needs to be done is there's an oily surface on here. It's called cosmoline. I remove it only from where the pads go. I don't worry about it. I leave it in the inside of the rotor. I only remove it from where the pad surface is. So let's do that real quick. All right, so I just use some brake spray. Hit it on there. Wipe it off. Usually does it right there. Do this side, same thing. Do it like that. Wipe it off. Make sure that cosmoline's off of there. Okay, ready to install. All right, so this is how easy these are. Put your rotor on. This guy on here. Do both of these real quick. Kind of get them hanging in there. Put this one back up over here. Take my Harbor Freight Earthquake. These things are really handy. $100, best $100 I ever spent. Nice and tight. I know exactly how tight I need to get it. You guys want to look up torque specs? Go for it. All right, new pads. Let's check them out. All right, so the pads come with shims. I've checked the old ones out. They're Toyota original, or whatever you want to call it. This is a Pontiac vibe, but it's all Toyota. They're in good shape. They're original. So I don't always like to use the China garbage you get with these pad kits, unless the ones are broken or bad that I take off. So I'm going to leave those on. I'm going to use something called CRC Disc Brake Quiet. This usually is like an insurance policy. Make sure these pad shims are tight. If they're a little bit loose, they'll make noise. So let's open this up. I'll bring you back in. Well, actually, it's open already. Pad surface. Inside is out right here. It's where the caliper mounts. And the outside is right here. And they're both, I'm looking at them because they're both the same. Right there. On the back side of the pad, put the inside one in place. Outside one in place. May not be able to get these ones in without taking that. You have to put these in from the inside. Bring it back in. I just get it in place. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure these are all the way open with the new set of pads. One of the things I always do. Forgot to do it. I was going to do that in advance, but that's all right. We use the other side pads. Make sure their calipers are all the way in. See how it's going a little bit more in? Make sure it's all the way in. Because the pad thickness of the new ones is thicker than the old, right? So I put this thing on here. Make sure these things move. I'm going to take them apart and grease these. These are not sliding very good. These should slide. That's not sliding. Take them off and grease them. See that? It needs to be greased. Let's grease them up, bring them back in, bring you back in. All right, so got these all moving good. You can see that should move nice and freely. If it doesn't, what happens is your pads will wear out prematurely. Little fun. Make sure your shims are nice and tight in the spot. Got my last bolt there. I'll put it on, bring it back in. Alright, crank these down, 14. Not too tight on these. Okay. We're good to go. One side's done. Let's do the other. I'll bring you back in. I won't show you do the whole other side. I'm just going to go ahead and finish it up. Then I'll bring you back in when we're all finished. And always do a test drive when you're done. And we'll talk a little bit later. Alright, so I went ahead and checked the master cylinder. It's full. That's right here. Always check, and when you're doing brakes, always check all the lines. Make sure there's no heavy rust. Make sure there's no leaking fluid. If there's anything leaking, replace it. No rebuilding, replace it. So check everything around, and then make sure there's no leaks anywhere in the brake hydraulics. There's no heavily rusted lines or anything like that. If they are, replace them. So first thing you want to do when you first get done is go ahead and start the engine and pump the brake pedal. So we're done, the engine's running. First thing you want to do is you're not going to have any brake pedal, because until your calipers are actually touching your rotors, or your pads are touching the rotors, you're going to have a little bit of a gap in there. So you want to pump the brake pedal a bunch of times, make sure have a good brake pedal, and then always again recheck your master level, make sure it's in between the lines, properly reading. If you have no fluid in your master, that means you have a leak. So you need to find that leak and make sure it's repaired. So that's just basically basic knowledge on brakes. If you don't know that stuff, you know, maybe it's something you shouldn't be doing, but anyway, but that's basic knowledge on brakes. You should do that with every brake job. You should always check everything, make sure it's not leaking anywhere. It's all, again, it's up to you. If you want to use my video information for you, again, use it at your own risk. And if you have any good results or bad results, you can always put those in the comments, and other people can read those comments and learn from them. So thank you for watching. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. We're gonna go test drive this, make sure they stop adequately. For the first 5 or 10 stops, real quick, you need to make sure you give yourself a lot of extra distance, because the pads do need to wear into the rotors. So keep that in mind when you just get done. Sometimes they don't stop quite as good as they used to, and make sure you drive it for, you know, at least I'd say 30 to 50 miles, depending on how many times you stop. Give yourself a little more distance and let those pads wear in. I'll talk to you in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.